Everyone knows that the internet can be a scary place. From a young age, we get warnings like, don't talk to strangers and never tell people your age online. We see posters in our schools about cyberbullying and stalking, and we're inundated with advertisements about hackers stealing our data. But even worse than all of that is the toll that social media can take on our mental health. If you ask someone how they think social media has affected our collective mental health, chances are you'll get a mixed response. While the internet has been monumental in helping people learn and connect with each other, we have to, begrudgingly, admit that the boomers were right. People are spending too much time glued to their phones these days. While it may seem like a non-problem at first, over time, social media has become especially detrimental to the people who don't always know how to moderate their usage of these sites. The biggest driving force behind what we see on our timelines when we use social media is the algorithm that each site uses. Every social media platform has their own algorithm that determines what posts get shown to users, and these algorithms use varying data sources to rank posts based on the time they were posted, engagement, and user interest, among other things. Several of the more popular social media sites, like Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, all have parts of their algorithms based around user engagement for posts. This means that the more engagement, i.e. likes, comments, views, shares, etc., that a post gets, the more the algorithm will push said post so that other users will see it as well. Algorithms are designed to do this to keep users engaged on the platform longer, but this focus on engagement can detract from the quality of the content being pushed by the algorithm. Unfortunately, it's not uncommon for people to post offensive or misleading content just to take advantage of the algorithm, whether it be for clout, a self-proclaimed social experiment, or fan cams of the pretty K-pop girls like this Twitter user. What makes things like this so dangerous, however, is the fact that people are much more likely to interact with negative or concerning things, which only boosts the reach that negative posts will have. This response is, in part, due to our psychology as humans. According to the Reactance theory, any perceived threat to our freedom of choice, including social influences like posts online, can elicit reactions to try and preserve our freedom. When we see posts that we perceive as wrong, our first reaction is often to comment on that post about it being wrong and push others to conform with our own perspective, further boosting the post in the eyes of the algorithm. This makes it very easy for misinformation and other provocative content to become regular parts of people's social media experiences. And, of course, the more we see this kind of content, the less enjoyable social media will be. Many people, especially those within popular fandoms such as fans of anime, K-pop, or YouTubers, prefer to use anonymous accounts to share their interests. This is in part because many users don't want their online fandom lives to mix with their personal lives, and they don't want to feel embarrassed or ashamed for expressing themselves online. The main reason, however, is that it can be dangerous to share personal information online. Of course, everyone knows not to trust strangers on the internet, but when your name and one picture of you can lead to your personal information being leaked, this is called doxing, it's much safer to run an entirely anonymous social media account. Doxing someone over a social media disagreement may seem extreme, and to most people it is, but it's increasingly becoming an issue within fandoms online. Cyberbullying, death threats, and getting canceled are also common when users get backlash on posts, and this makes social media sites a very volatile place for its users. Running an anonymous account as safety from doxing, however, is a double-edged sword. While the anonymity makes users feel more comfortable sharing their ideas, it can also create a disconnect between users that makes harassment feel like a fair punishment for a simple disagreement. Curious Cat, a Q&A website where users can receive anonymous messages, is supposed to be an innocent way to answer questions and share them with your followers on Twitter. But, all too often, people's inboxes are instead flooded with hateful messages ranging from attacks on character to, once again, death threats. Hiding behind anonymity, people will continuously send terrible messages to other users, typically until they either delete Curious Cat or deactivate their Twitter account. Some people will even create fake accounts just to further harass other users without backlash. It's gotten to the point for some users where they no longer feel comfortable sharing their own thoughts and opinions for fear of the backlash they'll receive from others. Even I myself have stopped posting almost entirely because of this trend. A few of my friends even feel that, with how fandoms on social media have become, it's easier to just give up your voice and keep your account private than to risk being harassed. Understanding the negative effects that social media has had on my mental health has, unfortunately, done very little to stop me from using it. Although social media usage doesn't cause a chemical dependency the way some drug addictions might, it still activates the same reward center in the brain that gambling and cocaine do, and thus can be just as addictive. In addition to the dopamine rush aspect of social media, users may also be looking for a way to make up for the social connections they're lacking in their offline lives, especially nowadays during the pandemic. Internet usage across platforms, social media and otherwise, skyrocketed after the start of quarantine, and social media and video call sites are seeing the biggest boom. Right now, social media is an almost mandatory part of our lives as it has become a replacement for in-person meetings and social events. Although this makes it even more difficult to shake the habit, social media is a necessary evil for the time being. That's okay, but only in moderation. Social media, for many, is meant to serve as a brief escape from reality when life gets too overwhelming. Watching a quick YouTube video between study sessions or scrolling through Twitter during your lunch break can be good for resting your mind and can help you focus again once your break is over. But, where social media is an escape for some, it's become an unhealthy coping mechanism for many others. The overuse of social media over time, especially in teens and adolescents, seems to only increase loneliness and worsen pre-existing mental health issues like anxiety and depression. When social media is overused, it becomes a toxic and harmful place rather than one to be carefree and blow off some steam, defeating its intended purpose entirely. Ultimately, social media has the potential to be either an extremely helpful tool or a rather frightening habit. It's beneficial in keeping up with current events and gaining new perspectives, but without careful usage and moderation of the time that you spend on social media, it's easy to fall into an unhealthy routine. Until it's safe to return to in-person meetings in our regular lives, social media will likely be a big part of keeping in touch with others and feeling a little less lonely. But we need to be very careful with it, and we cannot forget the danger it can pose without cautious usage.